Welcome our next speaker, Jack Knives. Their favorite Animal Crossing neighbor is Aurora, which, again, are they all my favorite? Who's to say? But I am so excited to learn about a different kind of DevOps investments with Jack. Everyone, give a very warm welcome for Jack Knives.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. My name is Jack. I'm the lead DevOps engineer at Moda Operandi, and I am very excited to teach everyone about the long game. In other words, how to use DevOps to set yourself up for leisure. To the uninitiated, DevOps can look like a huge undertaking with not all that much return. You have to get all of these specialized engineers to develop this platform that's supposedly going to make your code more stable. But what's that going to do? One, maybe two fewer outages? To some people, downtime is like traffic. It's a part of life. Sure, you can try to make it go away, but even if you shave off 10 minutes, it's still a long haul. And even if your leaders decide to sign on, DevOps really doesn't shine until you truly commit to it. It won't help much if you automate it 1 out of 10 of your processes, because you'll still be spending most of your time doing all those not automated things. And all of those not automated things leave you vulnerable to the most deadly part of any engineering job: human error. It turns into a vicious cycle of downtime. Let's say another engineer makes a manual hotfix on a database in prod and forgets to incorporate that into the infrastructure definition. Later, when you're making a routine deployment, everything breaks. But you can't figure out why, because your infra definition, as far as you know, is what's deployed in prod. So you have to spend another few hours of your precious workday figuring out what the problem is. These are the kinds of errors that will be alleviated, if not eliminated, by good DevOps practices. It might not seem like a worthwhile investment because it's a lot of effort for something that doesn't directly translate to revenue, but it will result in time savings, and time is money. You may not notice much difference between a 60 versus a 50-minute commute, but you will definitely notice if that 60 minutes becomes 15. Let me be upfront. DevOps is time-consuming at first. It's a philosophy that requires organizational buy-in, because to do it right, you need a lot of upfront work. True DevOps is proactive rather than reactive. What sounds easier? Rebuilding a burnt down building, or making sure fire safety protocols are up to snuff? You develop a stable CI/CD platform so that your developers are empowered to handle their own code and even infrastructure deployments. A well-designed DevOps platform will give you all the good stuff like stability, observability, and maintainability. But the real payoff is the fact that all that time spent up front comes back to you later. Now that you're spending less time putting out fires, you have more time to spend on making sure you never have to deal with a fire again. What good DevOps will do is give you a vicious cycle of improvement. Fewer outages means more time to dedicate to platform improvements, which will ultimately lead to even less downtime and better response time and troubleshooting ability in the event that there are errors. Say a developer gets an alert on their service. They may not know where to start looking. A vicious cycle of improvement would allow DevOps to pre-configure dashboards to help developers get started with troubleshooting so that the alert is resolved faster. And perhaps that dev will even make a PR for a bug fix. Maybe you would eventually reach the same result in your pre-DevOps setup, but it certainly would take longer. In order to build a powerful and reliable DevOps platform, you need to incorporate as much of the development process as you can into your platform. This includes automating code promotion, automatically running tests, auto-bundling observability, log aggregation, alerts, and creating self-service infrastructure deployments. Let's go through some example code and infrastructure deployment architectures that'll help you achieve DevOps enlightenment. Now, I've used Blathers here as my developer because he's terrified of bugs, like most developers. Here, you can see that all the magic is triggered by a push to a Git branch. This could be your main branch, but in this scenario, let's assume it's a feature branch. And once that fresh code hits, the CI process begins. Tests get run automatically. Definitely unit tests, but possibly also integration and perf, depending on your needs. All of your dependencies are pulled in to build your binary, your logging agent is added, and all of that gets packed into your container image. And now that you've got your app packed up and ready to go, it automatically gets shipped off to a non-prod environment. What that environment means to you largely depends on your use case. If you only have one developer working on a given repo, it makes more sense for that non-prod deployment to be permanently updated with in-progress changes. However, if you have lots of devs on a given repo, you could have short-lived deployments or simultaneous non-prod deployments. Immediately after the deployment to non-prod, the platform will also automatically set up monitoring and alerting for the deployed code and provision load balancers and domain names if needed. Now, there are two things that I want to highlight. The first is that here, non-prod is specified. A deployment to prod would work exactly the same, but you may or may not feel comfortable having it automatically updated. Either manual prod deployments or scheduled prod deployments could work for you. And the second thing is that Blathers here only needs to do one thing: push code. He doesn't need to worry about figuring out how all this other stuff is going to happen. He just needs to worry about making sure his code is bug-free. Next, we will go through what your infrastructure deployment could look like. Keep in mind that this is supposed to be self-service for developers. So first, we will go through what DevOps will do, and then go back to Blathers with a developer outlook. Here, we have Celeste as our DevOps engineer because she is perfect and can do no wrong, like most DevOps engineers. Her job is to create custom modules using infrastructure as code that will satisfy the developer's needs without requiring them to learn the ins and outs of either the infrastructure they're using or the IAC tool that DevOps is using to create these modules. What's in these modules? Well, that highly depends. Maybe you're provisioning in the cloud, maybe you're provisioning in on-prem, maybe all of your databases need to be Postgres, or maybe you need MySQL as an option. In general, though, you can usually assume your resources should be encrypted and private, and the access provision to these resources should be as minimal as possible. Any customization can be enforced through input flags or simple variables. You can also enforce clear naming conventions by automatically generating names for these resources based on the input. Going back to Blathers, he still just has to push code to a Git repo to provision infrastructure. He's going to drop some module files into his infrastructure management repo and then wait for the infrastructure CI/CD to work its magic. I didn't add details for that here, but an infrastructure CI/CD pipeline would be pretty similar to the code CI/CD. Run any tests needed, provision any alerts, and you're all set. The only work that Blathers needs to do here is give a little user input and maybe set a few flags here and there depending on his needs. He no longer needs to rely on Celeste for his infrastructure needs. This will cut back the possibly days-long developer DevOps feedback loop into just a few minutes. To drive the point home a little further, the work here really rests on DevOps' shoulders. Celeste has spent hours poring over a hot keyboard to make sure that Blathers never has to wait to have resources provisioned, or maybe so that he would stop getting on her nerves so much. Getting over this initial hurdle will result in everyone being able to spend more time on the work that matters the most to them. The stereotypical developer DevOps relationship is a sort of can't live with them, can't live without them, where developers are constantly bugging DevOps for infrastructure and blaming them for outages, while DevOps tosses the buck right back and resents developers for cutting into the time they can dedicate to their own tasks. It doesn't have to be that way. Developers don't want to bug DevOps whenever their deployment breaks or whenever they need a database provisioned, just as much as DevOps doesn't want to be troubleshooting deployed code or copy pasting the same infrastructure configuration. And we all know how awful it is to find out that a service has been down for 3 days because there were no alerts configured, or that half of your infrastructure resources are public because developers aren't fluent in every single cloud provider. The toxic developer DevOps relationship should be a relic of the past. Engineers should help each other, sure, but not at the detriment of their own work. Putting effort into developing this sort of feature-rich, self-service platform will ensure that developers can focus on implementing business logic and solving bugs, and that you as DevOps can focus on ensuring that their underlying infrastructure is secure, maintainable, and observable. You can start to explore things like service meshes, firewalls, or API gateways, or research different tools that may serve your platform better, rather than being stuck with what you've always used. That manual task you keep meaning to automate, it's finally time to get to it. And if you decide your time is better spent with a little bit of Animal Crossing, well, I'm not going to be the one to tell your boss. And that's all she wrote. Thank you all so much for listening. And as always, if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A channel.
Amazing. Thank you, Jack. Everybody throw some love into the Twitch chat and the Discord. We do have one question coming in. Do you have any advice for when devs are already running their own infra, but like inconsistently, like they have no modules, stuff like that?
Right. So it depends on what exactly you're doing. Your two main options are either write modules and sort of retrofit the existing infrastructure to those modules that you create, because most tools will allow you to import existing state. Or depending on the stuff that exists, like maybe you're planning on doing a migration to a different sort of structure anyway, you could always provision new resources with modules that you write and then migrate over to that infrastructure.
That makes sense. Honestly, we're still giggling about the Celeste joke.
That wasn't a joke.
Well, either way, it was perfect. There is one that says, this is more of a comment than a question, but I read it and I just like it, which says they're just letting you know that if this is your conference debut, you absolutely killed it.
Aw, thank you. It is my conference debut.
Hard agree. You were smooth and you sounded like a veteran public speaker. I have nothing but love. You were great. You crushed it. We're just all very happy about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.